Have you ever wondered what would happen if the person you loved suddenly lost everything, wealth, power, and even the gift of sight? Would love remain, or would it disappear overnight? Tonight's story will take you on an unforgettable emotional journey of betrayal, sacrifice, and a truth so powerful that it changes every life forever. A billionaire pretends to be blind to discover who truly loves him. His girlfriend and her ambitious mother think they can fool him, but they never expect one quiet woman from the shadows to reveal a secret that will leave everyone speechless. Stay until the very end, because the final decision this millionaire makes will prove that real love sees with the heart, not the eyes. Julien Moreau was one of the youngest self-made millionaires in France. At only 36 years old, he owned luxury hotels, technology companies, and charitable foundations worth hundreds of millions of euros. His face appeared on magazine covers, yet very few people knew who he truly was. Wealth had taught him one painful lesson: people admired his money far more than they admired the man behind it. Years earlier, Julien had fallen deeply in love, only to discover that his fiancée had secretly planned to marry him solely to gain control of his fortune. The betrayal shattered his faith in relationships. Since then, every smile felt suspicious, every compliment sounded rehearsed, and every promise carried hidden conditions. When he met Camille, everything seemed different. Camille was beautiful, charming, intelligent, and always knew exactly what to say. She laughed at his jokes, supported his dreams, and constantly reminded him that she loved him for who he was. Or so he believed. Camille's mother, Vivienne, entered Julien's life shortly after. Elegant and sophisticated, she often spoke about family values and loyalty. Yet whenever Julien visited their home, she always found clever ways to ask about investments, properties, or expensive gifts. Julien noticed every detail. Whenever conversations became emotional, Vivienne redirected them toward money. Whenever Camille spoke about marriage, the discussion somehow ended with luxury villas and inheritance. The doubts returned. One evening Julien sat alone inside his office overlooking Paris. Rain covered the windows while the city lights reflected across the glass. Across from him sat his oldest friend and lawyer, Marc. "I need to know the truth," Julien whispered. Marc sighed. "You've investigated everyone before. This time I don't want investigators." "What are you planning?" Julien slowly smiled. "I'll disappear, without leaving." Marc looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I'll become someone they no longer need." Several weeks later, shocking news spread through the business world. The famous millionaire Julien Moreau had suffered a serious accident during a private helicopter inspection. According to public reports, his eyesight had been permanently damaged. The media exploded with sympathy. Television channels discussed his future. Business analysts questioned whether he could continue leading his companies. But none of it was real. The blindness had been carefully staged with the help of trusted doctors, lawyers, and security personnel. Only 5 people in the world knew the truth. Julien now wore dark glasses, walked with a white cane, and behaved exactly like a man adjusting to permanent blindness. His mansion became strangely quiet. For the first week, Camille stayed beside him constantly. She held his hand. Prepared his meals. Read books aloud. Julien almost believed she truly loved him. But slowly, everything changed. Calls became shorter. Visits became less frequent. Her voice lost warmth. Meanwhile Vivienne became increasingly impatient. "I don't understand," she whispered one afternoon, believing Julien had left the room. "How long are we supposed to wait?" Camille answered quietly. "He may recover. And if he doesn't?" Silence. Then Vivienne spoke words that froze Julien's heart. "A blind millionaire is nothing like the man we planned for." Julien stood behind the hallway wall, hearing every word. Every sentence felt like another knife. Days later Camille arrived wearing expensive perfume. Instead of comforting Julien, she spent the afternoon discussing financial documents. She repeatedly asked whether someone else had gained control of his companies. Whether his signature still held legal authority. Whether he planned to transfer ownership before marriage. Julien answered softly. I don't know anymore. That evening Camille left earlier than usual. She never kissed him goodbye. For the first time, Julien cried alone. Not because he pretended to be blind. But because he finally saw everything clearly. Only one person treated him exactly the same. Madeleine. She was the mansion's oldest housekeeper. A quiet widow in her late 50s who had worked for Julien's family for over 25 years. Every morning she greeted him with genuine kindness. She never pitied him. She simply adapted. She described sunsets. She placed flowers beside his breakfast because she believed beautiful scents could replace beautiful sights. She organized books by touch. She patiently walked beside him through the gardens. She reminded him that losing one ability never meant losing one's worth. One afternoon Julien accidentally dropped his cup. It shattered across the floor. Before anyone else reacted, Madeleine gently held his hands. I'm sorry, Julien whispered. She smiled. Cups break. My life broke. No. She squeezed his fingers. Only your plans changed. Those words stayed inside his heart. Days became weeks. Camille visited only twice. Vivian stopped coming entirely. But Madeleine never missed a single morning. Late one evening Julien overheard two maids gossiping. Why does Madeleine care so much? Didn't you hear? What? Her own husband lost his eyesight before he died. Suddenly everything made sense. She wasn't helping because Julien was rich. She was helping because she understood pain. For the first time in years. Julien felt truly seen. Yet hidden inside Madeleine's past was a secret she had protected for decades, a secret connected to Julien's own family. A secret powerful enough to destroy lies, expose greed, and rewrite every future. And when that truth finally emerged, no one in the mansion would ever be the same again. The following morning, Julien found Madeleine watering the roses. They're beautiful, he said quietly. She smiled. You don't need eyes to know that. He laughed softly. No, perhaps I never did. Over the next several weeks they spent hours talking. Not about business. Not about wealth. But about life. Madeleine shared memories of raising her son alone after losing her husband. She spoke about working long nights simply to pay school fees. She confessed that dignity mattered more than comfort. Julien listened carefully. He realized he knew almost nothing about the people who had quietly built his success behind the scenes. One rainy afternoon Mark arrived unexpectedly. The investigation is complete, he whispered. Everything had been documented. Secret recordings. Financial transfers. Messages between Camille and another wealthy businessman. Evidence showed that she and Vivian had planned to leave Julien as soon as they secured access to his fortune. Julien closed the file without reading another page. He already knew enough. The real surprise came 2 days later. Madeleine requested a private conversation. Her hands trembled. There is something I should have told your father many years ago. Julien remained silent. When I first worked here, your mother became seriously ill. Julien looked toward her voice. I remember very little. You were only 6. Madeleine continued with tears in her eyes. During those difficult months, your mother secretly created a scholarship fund for employees' children. Julien frowned. I've never heard of it. Because she wanted no recognition. Madeleine smiled sadly. My son became one of the first children it helped. She opened an old envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. If one act of kindness changes even one family forever, my life will have been meaningful. It was signed by Julien's mother. Julien couldn't speak. His mother had quietly transformed lives without asking for gratitude. Madeleine looked into his eyes. She believed wealth should serve people. Julien finally understood what had been missing from his own life. Not success. Purpose. The following week Julien organized a family dinner. Camille arrived wearing a dazzling dress. Vivian smiled confidently. Both believed Julien was finally ready to discuss marriage and inheritance. Instead, Julien stood. Removed his dark glasses. Looked directly at them. The room became silent. Camille's face turned white. Vivian nearly dropped her glass. I'm not blind. Nobody spoke. I never was. Shock spread across every face. Julien calmly revealed recordings, documents, and conversations. He didn't shout. He didn't insult them. He simply told the truth. Camille began crying. Vivian demanded explanations. Julien answered quietly. When I lost my sight, you lost your love. Security politely escorted them outside. Neither returned. Weeks later Julien announced major changes. Thousands of employees received improved healthcare. Scholarship programs expanded across France. Support centers for visually impaired people opened under his mother's name. Every project carried one message. Kindness is the greatest investment. During the opening ceremony Julien invited Madeleine onto the stage. The audience applauded for several minutes. Embarrassed, she whispered. I've done nothing special. Julien smiled. You reminded me who I wanted to become. Years later journalists asked Julien what the greatest business decision of his life had been. They expected him to mention investments. Acquisitions. Technology. Instead he answered. The day I pretended to lose my sight. I finally learned how to see. Because money reveals comfort. Power reveals ambition. But only hardship reveals the human heart. And sometimes, the richest person in the room is not the millionaire. It is the humble woman whose kindness can never be bought.